Hello, welcome to Chat Show. Today we're talking to Chris Bradley, who is the founder and owner of Wolfpack Strength and Fitness. It's a gym in Quedgeley. Chris has worked in the sort of health and fitness sector for 25 years as a sort of fitness instructor and personal trainer. And today he's going to talk to us about the journey that he's had through to sort of setting up his own business. And a bit about his background. So welcome, Chris.
Thanks,
lovely
Lucy.
to have you on.
Thank you.
If you could just start by telling us a bit about what led you into the world of health and fitness.
Okay. Well, all through school, I was always very sporty. In fact, that was the only subject I really enjoyed doing at school. And, from an early age, like 14, 15, when it started to become a little bit more trendy to go to the gym and stuff, I got into that and, never really looked back really, but it was definitely playing sport, rugby, football, bit of golf and stuff. That was definitely like a segue into kind of wanting to do something like fitness related, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. And did you go on to do anything at university that was sort of fitness related?
Yeah, I mean, I did a diploma in sports science at sixth form, and then I went to London to do university. I did my first year at university, and whilst I was doing that, I landed a job in a gym as well and started personal training, and just before the second year of university and thought well, this is kind of like what I want to do after uni anyway. So I kind of binned uni and just got straight into a career in personal training. So
excellent.
Yeah.
And which gym did you work with in London?
I started out in Putney in southwest London, and I was at a leisure centre there, and then I moved to Holmes Place in Chelsea, which is now, I'm not sure what it is now, but it turned to Virgin Active later on down the line, which I work for as well. So,
yeah. And Virgin Active, did that see you taking on a number of different roles, or did you stay at that?
Yeah. Okay. So I ended up at the Virgin Active in Gloucester between doing some other things in London. And that job, I started off in club, and then I ended up moving back to London to take on a fitness manager role. Then I moved to another club where I was assistant general manager, and then I moved into a regional role with head office where I looked after the southwest of the UK for 13 different Virgin Actives, and my role was to improve the fitness experience on all of the gym floors across the southwest.
Okay. Sounds like a big important person job.
Yeah, well, it was at the time. Yeah.
Did it still give you the opportunity to do that sort of hands-on personal training and?
Not really. No. My role there was around training the trainers. So it was anything that you'd see on a Virgin Active gym floor. I would run certifications for the personal trainers and fitness coaches, so then they could go and train the members. So I'd run an 8-hour kettlebell course or an 8-hour power plate course or a TRX course. Or just like a 3-day personal training course to kind of give them the skills and ammunition, if you want to call it that, to go and kind of make successful careers for themselves.
And for a lot of people, setting up their own business in whatever field that might be is like a bit of a dream. And some people make it a reality, and sometimes it's not always that easy because of obstacles people face. Was it always a dream of yours to set up your own sort of business, or was it something you kind of fell into? Or
it really was, I remember vividly when I did my PT course just before starting out at Putney Leisure Centre. The tutor, the coach that we had for the course, he went around the room on the intros and asked us, well, what do you want to do? What's the kind of plan post being qualified? And 9 out of the 10 people, including myself, it was to have my own gym and get it set up and everything else. And I think when you work for these big corporate gym chains, you get all of these qualifications thrown at you and everything else, and you can reflecting back now, it really, for me anyway, kind of put blinkers on my vision of owning my own gym, because you're I get this, I get that, I get this. And don't get me wrong, I've learned a ton of really valuable things that I use to this day, and I'll be forever grateful for my 10 plus years at Virgin Active. But again, it sort of did kind of put the blinkers on a little bit of what I really wanted to do. And one of my biggest regrets is probably not starting earlier, but I don't regret a day that I've done since starting. So
Okay.
yeah.
So this is now your 7th year.
Seventh
So
year, yeah. So just turned 7 a
okay.
couple of days ago. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And let's talk a bit more about your gym now then. So you set Wolfpack up 7 years ago. What was your main kind of objective? Because obviously different people have different objectives when they go to a gym. Some people do it for weight loss. Some people want to bodybuild and just build muscle. Some people want to kind of tone up and or maybe just kind of train for like a marathon or a triathlon or something. What did you want to do when you created your gym?
So what I wanted for my gym was a place for people. And what I mean by that was every single gym that I've trained at over the years, whether it's been a big corporate gym chain or a spit and sawdust place, or and I've trained at all gyms all over the world. I've like consulted internationally in fitness as well. There's always I've found anyway, and through people I've spoken to, there's always groups of people or a person that like make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. So like you might have a plan and you're like, oh, I won't go over there because like there's a group of lads like hogging the bench press, or
it can be quite intimidating for some people who maybe haven't used a gym before if they're going along and they see these people who are sort of super fit and know exactly what they're doing and how all the equipment works. It can be quite intimidating.
Yeah, exactly that. And I wanted people from the get-go to walk through the door and feel kind of welcome, supported, comfortable from the get-go. And one of the things that I've always said to like my coaches and some of my members or even prospective members is like the heaviest weight in the gym is the front door. As soon as you've like done your 1 rep and you're through, you're kind of it's just going to be a bit easier from there. But that's the first step, isn't it, getting through the door? And all of those, people that I've seen or stories that I've heard, I didn't want any of that to exist in the gym. I wanted it to be about people first, and the training element is just like a wonderful byproduct of that. And that's something that I've like just gone with and picked up and ran with the whole time. And, although we do like amazing workouts and get amazing results with some of our core products, the number one bit of feedback that I get from all members, whether they've trained with me like a day, a week, a month, 7 years at Wolfpack, the number one bit of feedback is just the people. It's so supportive, so welcoming. I've never experienced anything like that. And that whole kind of, egos thing, we've kind of picked that up, taken it away so that, people can come in and feel like totally fine. And they're not like looking over their shoulder at what other people are doing. They're just focused on what they're doing whilst being supported by everybody doing it.
Yeah, that's really good. It's nice you've created a nice community where people feel comfortable and happy.
And again, like, that's always the first thing that people say is the community is just amazing. And then like, the training, the programming and everything else kind of come after that, which is exactly what the vision is. So it's kind of, when people come in, they feel a part of something bigger than just a training program, just losing weight, just getting fitter for X, Y, and Z. Yeah.
Okay, good. So do you do more of the kind of individual personal training sessions now, or more kind of the group classes where you get a bunch of people who have certain objectives they want to meet?
Yeah. So like the main thing, the lion's share of what I do is the I call it group team training. So that'll be anything from like 12 to 25 people in a session at a time. We do have some crazy sessions like the bank holiday. We had like 55 people in, but it's just organized chaos. It works, but we always do like big sessions at bank holidays and stuff like that. So that's the core offering, the group stuff. And then I do a bit of one-on-one personal training with specific clients, but like the lion's share of what I do is the large group training.
Okay. And in terms of the training courses, is that to help people sort of gain muscle, tone up? Is it to help them with their sort of cardiovascular sort of fitness, endurance, weight loss? What are the main objectives of the courses?
Well, I mean, we've got like a ton of members with like lots of different goals. One of our introductory programs is a 6-week weight loss program. And the goal of that is to help members drop 10 to 20 pounds in 6 weeks or less, and it's guaranteed, or I give them 100% of their money back.
Okay.
And to date, I haven't given anyone a refund, so
really
it works really, really well. So like that's kind of like just an introduction, and then what we tend to do after the 6 weeks is then work on their long-term goals. But by that point, they're 10 to 20 pounds lighter, and they're like, right, now I want to run a 10K or a half marathon, or you know, I want to do a sprint triathlon, or I want to do a high rocks event, and then we start to train them for those things.
That's really good.
Yeah.
And do you ever get involved in, like, do you set yourself any personal challenges? Have you ever done any marathons or triathlons or anything like that?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I've done I did the London Marathon in 2011.
Okay. Did
Um,
you enjoy it?
well, it's one of the worst days of my life.
It's good to tick the box. It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, it was again with that. I did the London Marathon with no training.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was, well,
I bet
part
that
of my
hurt
fault.
afterwards.
It did for about 4 weeks after. But I'd rolled my ankle in January, and I couldn't walk like properly on my foot until 2 weeks before the marathon.
Okay.
And then I said to myself, like 2 weeks before, if I can run like in 2 weeks, I'm just going to do it. And I was living in Twickenham at the time, so I was working in London, and I remember I thought, right, I know what I'll do. I'll run up the Thames towpath to Richmond and circle back to Twickenham. I think it was like a 3 or 4 mile loop.
Okay.
And I managed to do it, got back, and I was just like, that'll do. And then on Sunday, I just turned up at the start line, and off I went. And 4 hours, 19 minutes later, I crossed the line.
Oh,
so
good timing.
well, it wasn't too
Really
bad. I was a bit disappointed I didn't go sub 4 hours, but I think I was living in dreamland thinking that. So, but yeah, I ticked the London Marathon box, and I did say after that, like, because I remember sitting in Horse Guards Parade and just saying never, ever, ever, ever again.
Once you've done it, you've done it.
Yeah, and then I put myself in the ballot just gone now. So
oh, really? Have
yeah,
you? Okay,
so like I think we
doing it
find
again.
out in July.
Okay.
There's a few members at the gym, and I saw them, and I was like, oh, it'd be really cool if like I got it as well. And I know what's going to happen. I'll probably be like the only one that gets it, and then it might be another marathon, no training. But I'll probably be a bit more sensible and train for it this time.
Yeah. So how many members have you got now at the gym?
So right now, as of this morning, we've got 182 members.
Okay, that's really, really good.
Yeah.
And if we go back to the point when you actually set up your gym, can you talk us through kind of what you went through? Because obviously, I know you told me that you did a lot in terms of like just renovating the building and installing all of the equipment and everything. Yeah. Talk us through the work that was involved before you actually opened the doors.
Yeah, well, when I took on my very first unit, it was at Morelands, the Matchstick factory on Bristol Road. Okay. And like, I'm not going to lie, it's a bit of a hovel. Like when you go in there and you just sort of like, you know, I had some of the members be like, where do you hide the dead bodies? It was just like, it's a bit shocking. And like, you know, the outside of the place didn't represent like the gym that I created. And when you came in, there was a much different feel like inside the gym than on the outside, so to speak. But I remember when I took the unit on, it was actually for, you know, those people that have lived in Gloucester a long time and might listen to this. It used to be Riley's Snooker Hall, which like a few people will remember going there back in their teenage years, I'm sure. And what they'd done, the company, they'd split it out into units. Okay. But from where Riley's Snooker Hall had shut down and like they had ripped it apart and everything else, it like, you know, when I took the unit on, you'd go in through the door and you know, for want of a better way of putting it, it looked like a crack den in there. And it was just like, oh my God. And like when I went in, the like landlady said like, oh, you know, you're like the 5th or 6th person to come and have a look. And like I didn't ask why the others didn't like take it on, but when I walked through the door I was like, oh right, now I know why you didn't take it on. But you know, I shut my eyes and kind of
saw it had potential.
Yeah, like visualised what it would look like.
You've got to have the vision before you do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I said to the lady, I said, do you know what? Like, I'm going to take it on. It was like a lower cost because of the work that needed doing and everything else. And
well, that's an exciting project. Yeah, to really make your mark on it.
Yeah, and one of the funny things was when she gave me the key, there was still like a hole in the wall where like there was no plasterboard. I was like, do I need this? But she's like, oh, that'll be fixed next week. But yeah, and it was literally from crack den to gym, for want of a better way of putting it. I just transformed the place. There was like a couple of friends that like helped me out with a bit of painting and screwing up boards to the wall and stuff to make the plasterboard a bit stronger. But yeah, literally, I was still working at Virgin Active. Well, it's actually David Lloyd by then at the time. And I was going to David Lloyd in the morning at 6 a.m. training my clients. I'd managed to like bunch them all back to first thing in the morning, and I'd leave David Lloyd about 10 o'clock, go straight to my gym and carry on with the DIY, and I'm not a DIY person. I just like learnt stuff as I went along. Like I learnt how to use angle grinders and stuff, and burnt my forehead whilst doing it, and everything else. And I was so like excited by the project, and kind of like time just left me, it felt, because I'd be there at like 10:30, 11 doing work, and then I'd like look at my watch and it was like half midnight.
Oh wow.
And I was just like, oh my God, I haven't even eaten, or but like the gym was just like bang, 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 next step.
Yeah.
And I was just so excited to get it finished.
I bet.
Yeah. So that was a project in itself, and then like looking at the 2 pictures of what I started with and the finished product was just, it was amazing. It looked like a completely different space.
And I bet sourcing all the equipment was something quite new to you as well.
Yeah, and again, a funny story with that. I remember kind of having my list of things that I needed, and the guy who was recommending me what bits of equipment to get, we were talking about dumbbells, and he's like, yeah, you'll need 8 3s, 8 5s, 8 7s. And I thought I would need like 8 sets of those, so it'd be like 16 altogether, but he meant like you would need just 8 like single 3 kg dumbbells, 8 single, and I ended up like buying double the amount of dumbbells that I needed.
Wow.
But we've still got them all.
I bet you use them as well.
But with those classes of like 25, 30 people, like it really works now. It didn't help when I had like 3 members at the start, but and that was a bit of a running joke really with the you got a dumbbell to go with that workout or whatever.
And then in terms of getting established, because obviously you set up a business, you've got to sort of budget and forecast, and you've got to certainly the first year of business, a lot of companies fail, don't they, because of cash flow issues. So it helps if you've got a client base to dip into to start off with, because it's that kind of getting the wheels in motion, isn't it? Did you have, from previous clients who you'd trained before, did you have a bit of a following who came to join with you, or did you have to kind of really market the business and put on promotional offers and things for new customers?
A bit of both. Like my original and very naive plan was that I was going to move from David Lloyd and all the people that used to train with me and do my classes with me and everything else. I just thought, they like me. I like them. We get on great. We always have a chat on the gym floor. They're just going to come along down to Moorlands with me and leave David Lloyd. And that was my plan. I think I had like a private Facebook group for one of my like all the people that I had trained, and there was about 335 people in there. And I thought, I'm just going to pick that up, drop it on Moorlands, and it's going to be happy days. I'm going to hit the ground running on day one. And 7 people came. And I was just like, oh.
I think for some people it's just convenience, isn't it? If it's somewhere where they pass, say, on the way back from work, or if it's really close to where they live, they'll go to the gym, and if it's a further distance away, no matter how good the relationship is, it doesn't really suit their lifestyle. And this is the thing, and they might have come and done that one class a week with me and did it religiously every week because they loved it, but they were still doing the other like 4 sessions in the gym a week, and I just, that's it. And it's David Lloyd's got a lot to offer, hasn't it, in terms of like the tennis courts, the swimming, all the equipment, everything, so hard to compete with. But
depends if you want results on that. I'm joking. No, they're a great place, and they're going through all their refurb and everything else now, but
Okay. And then, so you had 7 customers from, what was potentially about 300 odd customers. And then what did you do to kind of build it up? Was it kind of, did you use social media to sort of put the word around, or did you put on some special offers? Yeah, I
mean, I've always been pretty hot with social media. For anyone looking in, they're like, oh, who's running your socials is great. And, there's great content and everything else. And it's just like, I do it all. And I just done from the get-go. And it's just been one of those things that just becomes something, a part of what you do to kind of drive the business forward. And the original 7 came along, and we started working together, and there was like a bit of that was like the soft launch. And then we were due to go for like the major opening on the 3rd of March, 2018.
Okay.
And we had the big snowstorms. Then the Beast from the East, it was called.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was when we had all the big 20-foot snow drifts and everything else. So that kind of scuppered my plans to open. And I said, oh, don't worry about it. You know, we'll just do it in 2 weeks when all the snow's melted or whatever. And we're having people from all over, because where I'd built that network of people in the regional role with Virgin Active, there were like PTs and coaches and everything else, and members that wanted to come and, you know, be a part of the opening as well. So I had like, you know, like over 100 people coming for the grand opening from, you know, all four corners of the UK. And obviously the snow scuppered plans to open, and I said, we'll do it in 2 weeks. And that was that. And then the next day, I planned to go and meet a friend in Cirencester. And it had been raining the night before, and the roads were clear, but it was still really cold. And I was driving down the 417, just down like the long straight where it dips down to come up. I think it's 2 or 3 miles back from the Cirencester turnoff. And I hit a bit of black ice at 70 miles an hour. Started
that doesn't sound
going
good.
all over the road, and then was going sideways. And then I went down over the bank into a ditch, up through a fence, and just totaled the car.
Oh no.
Smashed all the windows, and like loads of the wood from the fence came in through the car as well. And when I eventually stopped,
she had a car accident at 70 miles per hour.
Car crash
on black ice.
On black ice.
Ouch.
Yeah. And then like I saw
That could
this
have been
wood on my
fatal.
lap. Well, it could have been.
Yeah.
And I started pulling all the wood off me, and then I managed to kind of clamber out of the car, which was like an absolute wreck.
You're lucky to be alive.
Well, I was, and you know, it turned out I really was lucky to be alive. But I remember like walking over back to the fence post and just leaning on it and really struggling to breathe. And I looked down, and I was wearing a woolly jumper at the time, and it was all like torn up. So I lifted my jumper, and then I could see like a big 6-inch hole in my stomach where one of the bits of wood had gone through me from the fence. And it turned out that I'd pulled the wood out of me.
Wow.
Just in that moment, because I don't know, adrenaline was high or whatever. And then I could see whatever it was hanging out of me as well. So I scooped it up and shoved it back in, and then just held my hand on my stomach tight. And that's when I knew, it's like, shit, like I need to get some help. So I was trying to wave cars down as they were driving past. They were slowing down but not stopping, and no one stopped. So I was like, right, I've got to get up to the roadside and stop somebody. So I went back to the hole in the fence I made, jumped over this ditch, and then climbed the 20-foot bank. Wow. And then another 4 or 5 cars went past, and I managed to stop this old lady who had her dog in the car. And she said, do you need some help? I said, just ring me an ambulance. Like, my phone's gone. Like, from the crash, it had flown out the window. So she called the ambulance for me, and then she said, what do you want me to do? And I said, just like keep me coherent and make sure I don't like pass out or black out, because if I do, then, and this hole opens up that I've got in my stomach, I don't know what's going to happen. And she was just stood there like a cat in headlights and wasn't saying anything. And I could see she had a dog in her car, and I was like, right, what's your dog's name? Where you going? How long have you had it? And I was just like, ask me things like this. Yeah. And I said, because I need to just keep talking. I was like, where are you going to see your daughter? What's your daughter's name? How old's your daughter? Blah, blah, blah. Just chit chat really, but to keep me conscious. And then we ended up standing on the roadside there in the freezing cold, for 40 minutes before the ambulance came. And I remember like sweat dripping off my nose because it was the adrenaline and everything else. And there were times in that 40 minutes where I felt like I was going to go, and I just kind of managed to, you know, talk myself out of it. And I know we were speaking before about that. And, you know, this was back in my crazier days of training. I've trained before to the point where I've passed out. Okay. Just to, again, see what I'm made of and everything else.
Challenge yourself.
Yeah, exactly that. And, you know, that served me on the roadside, because that feeling when everything started to kind of, you get those black spots over your eyes and everything else, and you feel like you're going to go. I was like, no, I've been here before. I know this feeling. And where I'd like trained to that point, and, you know, trained to that point before, but then managed the point before I black out, I just used that system, if you want to call it that, to not go over on the roadside. Yeah. And
how long did it take for the ambulance to arrive?
40 minutes it took.
I bet that was freezing.
It was all right. And then when the ambulance got there, it was like, then I knew I could relax, because I was just like, right, I'm in their hands now. There's nothing I can do. I've done the hard work, so to speak.
And they took you to hospital?
They did, yeah. And they were going to take me to Gloucester originally. And the paramedics took a look at me and said, nah, we'll go straight to Southmead in Bristol. So they rushed me down to there. And I remember when we got there to A&E, they put me on this, I think it was like a metal table, and it seemed like there were like 15, 20 people around me, doctors, nurses, surgeons, like checking everything and, you know, asking how I was and asking if I was in pain. I was like, yeah, I'm in a bit of pain. And they said, oh, we can give you something for that. And they said, have you been in this much pain before? And I said, well, I've done a couple of tough workouts. And they started laughing. But I was being, for the amount of injuries that I had, which I'll tell you about in a second, I was being quite jovial with it all and everything else. And it turned out that, you know, I did have to go in for surgery, but we probably got to Southmead about 2-3 o'clock. And then I went in for surgery at 11:30 at night. And where I was, you know, coherent and, you know, chatting to the surgeons and the doctors and everything, there were other people coming in that, you know, maybe didn't have as bad accidents as what I had had, but they just weren't dealing with it well. So they kind of like skipped the queue, and I went in later on. And then I went in for surgery at 11:30. I think I came out at 1:30, and then they sent me straight to intensive care. So I was then in ICU. But
what was the damage to your body? Did they use like puncture any vital organs or anything?
I did, yeah. So I broke 8 ribs on my right hand side.
Wow.
I had a partial collapse of my right lung. I had a minor tear to my bowel, a laceration to my liver, and obviously a big hole in my stomach where the steak had gone through me. But then I came out at 5:30, went to intensive care. I woke up about 8 o'clock, and they said I just needed to rest at that point, because obviously there was major trauma.
Yeah,
and
just give your body time to heal itself.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then about 9:30, the surgeon, the doctor, and the physio came around, and they said that I was the luckiest unlucky guy in Gloucestershire that day. They said because where the stake went through me, it was literally like millimeters right and left of just missing like major arteries. They said if you'd like severed any of those, you'd have like bled out in 2-3 minutes, and you'd have just been dead.
Jeez.
Probably in your cut. You just
lucky.
If you did pass out, you wouldn't have woken up. That would have been it.
Yeah.
And they said to you, like, you know, you're the luckiest unlucky guy, and obviously they knew about the gym as well.
Yeah.
And they said, like, you know, at least hopefully you're going to get to open it one day. And like once they'd kind of told me all of the injuries that I just said to you, I said, right, well, what's the next step to recovery? Because I've got a gym to open yesterday, and like I'm here in intensive care today. And they said, well, you know, you're probably going to be in intensive care for the next 4 to 6 weeks. Then we'll move you to the ward for like 1 or 2 weeks, and then, you know, you'll get to go home after that, providing you can do X, Y, and Z. And I said, well, tell me about what X is. What's the next step? And they said, well, the physio said the next step is, you know, we'll get you out of that bed and sat in the chair for, you know, 5-10 minutes upright. That's the first step. And I said, let's do it now. And they said, well, you've just had a major car accident. You're in intensive care. You need to rest. Like, there's major trauma here. And I said, I'm not sure if you heard me. Like, let's do it now. Either you're going to help me get out of this bed, or you're going to watch me probably do more damage getting myself out of the bed. So, you know, after a few words back and forth, they reluctantly helped me get out, and I sat on that chair for 10 minutes, smiling at the physio. And then they put me back in the bed, and like, admittedly, I did kind of need a little snooze after that. And I said, like, you know, what's the next steps after this? And they said, well, you know, the next steps after being able to sit in the chair is going for a little walk, you know, probably to the door and back. And I was like, okay, I'll see you tomorrow for that. And he came back a little bit more sheepishly the next morning. Said, do you want to try sitting in the chair? And I said, you know me well enough by now, mate. We're going to go for the walk. And we walked from the bed all the way around the whole intensive care unit. And I think there was like, I don't know, like 30 beds in there. So it's quite a big ward that we walked around and back. And then the inevitable next question is, what's tomorrow? And he said, well, we'll try the stairs if you're up for it. So he came around the next day and said, right, we can go to the stairs. He goes, it's a much bigger walk to get to the stairs, but we'll take a wheelchair if you need it. But I walked down the stairs, up the stairs, and walked back. And he was like, great, I'll report it back to the surgeon and the doctor. About 2:00 that afternoon, the surgeon and the doctor came in scratching their head, and they were like, we don't know what to do with you. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And they said, well, you're doing all the things that you should be doing at like week 8 of after being down in the ward. You can go home if you want.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. And they said, like, just to note, like, you're the only person in this hospital's history that's ever been like discharged from ICU. And they said, you're a freak. I was just like, I'll take the compliment. And on that very note, I rang my mum. She came and picked me up and took me home. And I think like the worst part of that whole crash, to the ambulance, to the surgery, to the doing stuff with the physio over the 3 and a bit days I was in intensive care, was the drive home from Bristol to home. I felt every pothole, every drain cover. And I remember just getting back to my mum's at the time, and we had to go to Hereford, so it's a bit of a trek. Just getting in the recliner seat and just going to sleep for 3 hours, because that was brutal. Like, I really felt the ribs and everything then. Yeah.
And then obviously quite bad injuries sustained to your body. How long did it take you then really like at home to recover before you were able to actually realise your dream and open your gym?
Yeah, well, the recovery, I think the drive home really wiped me out. And then the next day, because I had to sleep sort of like semi-upright as well because of the lung. Okay. And I couldn't like roll over and get out of bed. And I remember like the next morning, I was kind of I'd slipped down the bed a little bit, and I couldn't roll onto my right because this was where all the damage was. And like the left-hand side of the bed was free because it was a double bed, and I couldn't kind of scooch over because of the injuries, and I couldn't sit up because I'd ripped my stomach and abs open.
No core strength.
Yeah, and I remember just like thinking, right, how do I get out of bed? And like my mum could hear me sort of like grunting or whatever, trying to move, and she's like, do you need help? And I was like, no, I don't. I've like got to learn to do this myself. And I remember just like grabbing the bedpost and like pushing myself up to get out, and then kind of swang a leg over and hook the mattress, and it was painful, but I managed to like sit up and get out of bed. And then at mum's, she's got like, you can walk out of the front gate and then around the back up the lane, and it's, I don't know, like a little 150 200 meter loop. So we walked a 200 meter loop with mum on the next day, and then I was like, right, I'm just going to add another 200 meters every day. And then I did like 2 laps, then 3 laps, and then we walked up to the Berryfield where there's a cricket field there, and then I did a lap of the cricket field, and then I was walking 2 laps of the cricket field, then I walked a K, then I walked a K and a half.
Yeah.
And this was all within like the first 7-8 days of being home. And then I think 10 days after the crash, I tried to do a squat, and I managed to get my first one, and I was just like, oh, there we go, like this is coming together now. And then on the 9th of April, which is 4 weeks and a couple of days post crash, I just said, we're going to do a community boot camp at the gym, like another kind of thing, like a bit of a soft launch. Okay. And I went and ran that and took part in it, like physically doing the movements with the people that came as well. And that was literally like 4 weeks after, people were coming up to me going, oh my God, you wouldn't even know you had a crash.
Incredible.
And
the body heals itself really quickly.
And again, like, I needed to go home and have a sleep after that. And that's kind of how I started managing things. It was, doing a coaching a session, and then going home and having a sleep. And like the sleep became less and less and less until it was none. And then I officially opened the gym on the 6th of May, 2018. And I was going full bore, like nothing had ever happened. So, that was the story to open in the gym. It was not how I obviously planned it, but the vision of getting it started, and I did it, obviously, you know, I burnt through 2 months of rent and stuff like that whilst I was injured, but I just, the drive to get it going, get it going was just so fierce and burning deep in me that like nothing was going to stop me.
In a way, it's really nice you had that as your goal to help you get through the recovery. Obviously very determined to get there.
Yeah, and I think, like, you know, if I was still working or employed, then it's easier to go like, oh yeah, like 6 to 8 weeks off. That sounds dreamy.
Yeah,
like,
you can't do it when you're in your business.
But you know, when you've got when the buck stops with you, and like, you know, there's money that on the table that you've kind of put into it. Yeah. Then you know, you just got to do whatever it takes to like get going again. And there was a big lesson in that.
Yeah. A wonderful story of how you can fight through adversity when these challenges, you know, you have to face and get through it, and you know, you obviously get rewarded with a lot of satisfaction at the end of it. Yeah. Okay, thanks for sharing that story with us.
So that's a bit of a roundabout way of, you know, how did you market your gym to get started? But
slightly alternative marketing plan.
But then I remember, like, to come back to your original question, so apologies for going off on a tangent there, but when I started at that point, I remember, you know, I was living on my own with my 3 boys, my eldest and my twin boys. And I remember, like, my eldest was at primary school, infant school at the time. And the twins, they were at nursery with the childminder. And where I'd, like, burnt through some, like, cash, where I wasn't obviously at the gym, I'd got to a point where I had like £1,000 left in my business account, and then my rent was £850, the childminder was £650, and the rent on the gym was £950, and I had £1,000 left. And I was like, I've got 3 options here, and it was kind of like we'd been open like a month. And I was at the point where I was like, I'm going to have to close the doors on this place and like go back to David Lloyd or something with the tails between my legs. And I was just like, I don't know what to do. And then I remember like scrolling through Facebook, and this ad popped up for a mentor at the time. And I clicked on it. It's this American guy, Alex Hormozy was the guy. Like, if you research him now, he's a multi-millionaire, like really successful guy, and he was offering a program to help gyms get front end cash and get moving, and the deposit for the payment for the whole mentorship with him was 13 grand for the thing, and I had £1,000. So I was just like, well, what do I do? And he said, put £1,000 down, and then I'll give you 2 weeks grace to learn the systems, do everything, get it all set up, and then from 2 weeks we'll start taking, I think, 750 quid a week until you've paid off the 13 grand. And I was like, okay. So I took the £1,000, put it on there. I still had no money for my next month's house deposit, and this was like the 20th of May, so I had like 10 days, and in 10 days I had to pay my gym £950, the house £850, and the childcare £650. So, you know, over £2,000 worth of bills coming out. And I put the £1,000 down, and I just went all in. Again, that kind of moment of like, it's all or nothing. I can't remember sleeping very much for 5 days. Just literally from the minute I woke up, I was going and coaching the 7 people that had come with me from the gym, and then at all other times I was just building systems, processes, and, you know, getting things going down the gym, filming YouTube ads, and you know, getting them ready for Facebook ads. And it just like blew up. I think I like signed 50 members in 10 days.
Oh, that's amazing.
You know, I think I made like the 13 grand back in like 15 days or something stupid like that. Amazing. It was, and then this is where I learned the value of having a mentor and like someone who's done it before, and, knows the systems and processes, and obviously it comes at a cost. And when they go, oh, it's like 13 grand or $20,000 it was for them, or and that big kind of gulp, and it was just like, well, what other option do I have? Like, I can pay them $1,000, and if it doesn't work, I'll just have to like run off and hide or something. I did it, like, that was my only choice. But I was just like, pay it, do the work, and if they're saying it does what it says it's going to do, then this is going to be the outcome. And I remember one of the questions was like, well, what should I do? And the guy just said to me, he said, just do exactly what Alex tells you to do. And I was just like, okay. So I did that, and kind of never looked back.
That's brilliant.
And then it kind of grew, and then the whole, the culture piece around the people that I explained at the start, the 50 people, 57 people like bought into that, and then it just started building and building and building. And then I created that 6-week, 10 to 20 pounds weight loss. So that was the hook to get people to come in, and then like the losing the 10 to 20 pounds is a wonderful thing, and and then obviously like we give them a system to sustain that post that. But again, then it comes back to the like people loving being there, and I wanted to create a third space for people. So your 2 normal spaces are home and work, and then the third place you think of is the gym. And if you go and speak to any of my members right now, they'll be like, what's the top 3 places you go to every week? They'll be like, home, work, gym. So it's like the Starbucks model, the third space.
Exactly. Good. Excellent. Well, very interesting to learn about how you came to found your own business, and the process you've gone through, the challenges that you faced, and the community that you've built. So thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. If anybody wants to find out a bit more about Wolfpack, where you are and how they can maybe become a member, where's the best place for them to look?
So the best place for them to look is our social medias. Instagram, our Instagram handle, if that's the right word, is wsf.uk. So Wolfpack Strength and Condition, wsf.uk, and I think it's the same for Facebook as well. Or if you just type in like Wolfpack Strength and Fitness, then it will come up on Google and everything.
And you're based in Quedgeley, aren't you?
Yeah, well, just on the edge of Quedgeley in Hardwick, actually. So
but quite near the big police station.
Literally like 30 seconds from Police HQ. It's like a 2-3 minute drive from Junction 12 on the M5. So so we get like a lot of members coming down from Cheltenham or coming up from Stroud, Dursley, as well as obviously like the local people in Hardwick and Quedgeley, and then people coming from Gloucester as well. We also do the online training. So we've got members from Otley up in Yorkshire, members from Maidenhead, from Essex. They all actually joined me 5 years ago in lockdown when everything went online. So we do live Zoom training as well, so people from home can train with us at the gym.
Brilliant.
So that works quite cool too.
Excellent. Good. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Chris. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you about your business.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching, guys. We'll look forward to seeing you again for the next podcast. Until then, goodbye.